Welcome to the Drum Social Podcast with Alex Morse and Ben Bell.
Welcome to the Drum Social Podcast. Today's guest is the legendary drummer, composer, the man that's won all the awards, Mr. Antonio Sanchez. How's it going?
It's going well. Good morning.
Morning.
We like to start the interviews out by giving the guest a gift. So, Joel, could you hand the small gift bag to Antonio? And Antonio, if you reach within, there's an underwhelming gift inside.
Is that supposed to be me?
It's not supposed to be you, but there's a level of representation here that it is Thor, a great hero, of which not only are you known as the composer of Birdman, everybody knows it, we can't get past it, but you also recently released a project called Beat Trio with Edmar Castaneda and Bela Fleck.
Correct.
I don't know if everyone in the room knows about this trio, but to me, it's ridiculously unique. It's you on the drums, harp, banjo.
Yes.
People need to check it out. The artwork for the tour was you guys as Pez dispensers.
That's right.
So I thought that's
Now
the
it all
link to
makes sense.
the Thor Pez dispenser.
I see. Now talk about memory lane,
Yeah.
nostalgia, Pez.
Were you
Thank you.
a collector?
I'm not, but I haven't seen one of these in like 30 years. So
Somewhere in this room, there's about 1,000 extra Pez's for you if you want. Can we quickly, before we get into you starting the drums, can we quickly touch on that project? Because it's so unique, how did that come to be?
well, about let's say maybe a year and a half ago, I started doing an album where I wanted to play duos with some of my favorite musicians. And the duo is such an exposed configuration, right? I mean, you can see right away, you can feel right away if it works or not, rhythmically, conceptually, with the other person, because it's just the two of you. And one of the persons that I wanted to have on the album was Bela Fleck, who I've been a fan of for a long time. I mean, he's obviously the Bela Fleck and the Flecktones have been around for a long time. But then, he played with some of my heroes. He played duos with Chick Corea. He played with Zakir Hussain and Edgar Meyer. I mean, and obviously he's got the bluegrass thing, the Americana thing, which banjo is such an incredibly rhythmic instrument. And the way he plays, I was like, man, I bet it's going to be a blast to play with this guy. So I called him up. I said, man, would you... Actually, we did a gig first. We opened for Dave Matthews once in Mexico City. No, not Mexico City, around the Cancun area.
But did you know Dave already from featuring on...
No, it was the other way around. That's where I met Dave.
Can't believe it.
Yeah, so through Bela, because Bela and Dave had known each other for a long time. And he called me up and like, there's this gig in Mexico. Do you want to do it? I was like, yeah, of course. And then we played trio that time. And then when I started doing this project of duos, I had John Schofield, Bill Frisell, Chris Potter, I mean, a bunch of very well-known jazz people. And then when we did the duo, it was a blast as I thought it was going to be. And then he said, I did this thing with Edmar a couple of years ago, and maybe the three of us could do something together. And my first thought was like, banjo, harp, and drums? What the hell is that? Has that ever been done? I don't think so. And but I knew of Edmar. He's an incredibly, again, another very rhythmic player, and the harp is just such a beautiful, gorgeous instrument. And when you think about it, I mean, how many times have you seen a harp player do like crazy things on the harp? Never.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, a lot of the times they're in the back of an orchestra.
Yeah.
If at all. So, and Edmar is such a performer. I mean, he just is all over the harp.
Yeah, he covers so much ground.
Yeah, and he's it's a Colombian harp, so he plays standing up, and he plays the bass and the harmony. So it's like the bass player and the guitar player at the same time. And I said, man, at this point in my career, to do something that I've never done, I was like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And he came to the studio, we recorded, we jammed, it was a lot of fun, and then we all started bringing tunes, and then, we started getting a bunch of gigs. We recorded, and then to promote the album, which went on tour. And we have been on tour since September last year. Like, not all the time, but quite a few gigs. We came to play in London in July, and it's been a blast, to find each other, to find our place within that incredibly rhythmic configuration, because everybody's playing rhythm. So it's very, you have to be so together on all the time. Otherwise, it starts flamming.
Yeah.
Everything starts flamming. And I realized after every gig, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted because you have to really just stay in that zone for, we play long gigs too. I mean, like maybe 2 hours usually. And I have more solos in that band than I have in my own bands.
Which is mental.
Which is it's cool, but I'm exhausted. Yeah. But it's a fun band. If you see it around, come and check us out, because I always introduce it. I'm the first one on the mic because it's a collective, and I always say, well, welcome, thanks for coming to see the Beat Trio, also known as the world's most unlikely band, because like nobody has seen that configuration ever. Right?
It's great.
I mean, before that started and before your whole career, how did you then get into drums?
Well, I think it began in the womb of my mother, Susanna.
Very early.
We're going all the way back.
Because she's, flower child, marijuana smoking, Woodstock generation mother, and she just loved rock and roll. Still does to this day. And she says when she was pregnant with me, she would play The Cream with Ginger Baker, and that I would just roll around in her womb like a mad.
To start at Ginger Baker is...
Yeah, and so she says that he's kind of my father in a way. So I don't see the resemblance at all, but my musical father in a way. And then I was born, and I was growing up with that, of course with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. So I was listening to that all the time. And then when I was 5, my mother, Susana, has a brother, Ignacio. Ignacio had a girlfriend, Ana, and Ana had a brother, Fito. And Fito was a drummer.
Nice.
So we went to her house. The whole family went to have lunch at their house, I guess. And they opened the door, and the first thing I saw was a Ludwig Vistalite kit that was just sitting in the middle of the living room. And it was Fito's drum set. And it had all these boom stands. Like, it looked like a spaceship, and the cymbals were really low. And, I had seen pictures of drums before, but at that moment, I think I realized all that sound that I loved, that I've been listening for 5 years, since I was born, my whole life. It was that. And then I think I went to the drum set and I grabbed the stick and I just like hit it a couple of times, and then Fito was upstairs and he came down and like, oh, do you want to hear what this sounds? Go over there. and then he played. I mean, I remember like this was yesterday. It's crazy. One of my first memories, I guess. He put it on the stereo on the LP.
Yeah.
Whole lot of love, and then. Just started blacka, and then I was like, what the, and that was it. I started going and taking lessons with him, which he showed me very basic technique.
Yeah.
But my lessons were basically bringing my favorite albums, which at that point were Sgt. Pepper's and Black and Blue by the Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers, and just learn how to play the parts, and then. I started graduating to Led Zeppelin, and then later I discovered Rush. My cousin said, "Man, this band, this drummer," and Exit Stage Left was the first album I heard, and of course YYZ, and I was like, this is it. And so I always wanted to be a rock star. That was my goal.
I think you've made it.
Yeah, I can tick that off for you if you want.
You're a rock star in the womb, apparently.
Believe me, I know. I am not. and then after that, I discovered Stuart Copeland. So I was in that realm for for a while in my teens, and I had my rock bands, and we were playing all around Mexico City, maybe 3-4 different rock bands. And then one day I saw the movie Amadeus. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Yeah.
By Milos Forman. Incredible movie about Mozart, and I was a teenager. I was like, wow, this is amazing, And I also had classical music in my head since I was a kid, because we moved with my grandparents when I was 1, and my grandfather would always listen to classical music during lunchtime. So I would listen to rock all day and then classical music at lunch, and then I heard Mozart. I was like, and the movie's so amazing, and to see a kid doing that and composing symphonies and operas before he was 10, I was like, man, this is, I don't know, it did something to me, and I said I wanted to study classical piano.
Yeah.
So then I enrolled myself in the conservatory, and I wasn't ready because I didn't know anything. So they told me, take a year of piano and then come an audition. So that's what I did. They accepted me, and then I started doing the degree. Basically, my actual degree was classical piano. And then while I was in that school, they had a jazz workshop. Now it's a degree, but back then it was just like a workshop. And then I was practicing, Mozart and Debussy and stuff. But I would be listening to the big band, playing. And like I said, I was into rock. I was not into jazz at all. As a matter of fact, my mom tried to play me an Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers record while I was in my Rush Police phase. And I was like, oh, Mom, what? Why would you play me this? Yeah,
Poor
and
Art
stupid
Blakey.
me, I was just not ready, But then I started checking out the big bands and the small combos, and I was like, it's not rock, but it has drums, and it looks really interesting. And then in that workshop, I started meeting friends, and one of my friends said, I know you like rock, so check out this tape. Maybe you're gonna like it. And I didn't know what it was, but it's a Chick Corea electric band. And I went home and I played it, and I was like, it just blew me away again. The same way, Led Zeppelin blew me away. The same way, Rush and the Police. But this one I could not play along to. I tried, and I was like, no, this is not happening. So then I realized, okay, there's a lot of things I didn't know. Because at that point, I almost was like, well, I can play along to the Rush records. I can play along to the Police records. These are the best drummers in the world. So what else do I have to learn? But it's just I didn't know anything about anything. At that point, I was I was in a little bubble. And then once I heard that band, and then that brought me to other things. I started getting into my fusion influences, Mahavishnu Orchestra, John Scofield, Pat Metheny. Then the world started opening up, and I realized how much I didn't know, and I needed to study. So that's why I started practicing by myself quite a bit with Dave Weckels' instructional video, because it was one of the only things you could get in Mexico at that time. And I remember I devoured that video, and I had my mirror, and I was trying to look exactly my hands like him. He was a great technician, so it was a good first video to have, and he was a very good teacher as well. So I started practicing a lot on my own, and then I decided, I needed to actually do this seriously. So I applied to go to Berklee College of Music, and then I left Mexico when I was 21, and never went back to. Obviously I go back a bunch because my family is there, but I just stayed in the States for a long time, just trying to make something out of myself.
It's amazing. It's such a wide range of genres you've covered. I mean, you are, again, known for bending genres, melding things together. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but you are like your own sound when I listen to your music.
Well, thank you. That's one of the biggest compliments anybody can get.
You go to Berklee. You get, is it a master's degree in improvisational jazz?
Yeah, it was actually, drum performance. While I was there, I got the Buddy Rich Memorial Scholarship on my second year, and that helped me to continue because it was unaffordable, completely unaffordable for us at that point. My mother, she paid my first year with her credit card, and then after a year of being in school, just scraping by, the peso, the Mexican peso, suffered one of the worst devaluations in history, and from one day to another, her debt like duplicated. So we absolutely freaked out, and she's like, I don't know how I can keep up with this.
Yeah.
And exactly at that moment, the Buddy Rich Memorial Scholarship came in, then the Siljan Scholarship came in, and all of a sudden, everything started falling into place, and I was able to stay and finish. Luckily, because I was very close to having had to go back to Mexico, and I would not be here probably.
What's your mum's name? Can we give her a shout out?
Susana Lopez Aranda.
She's
the woman. She's not the man. She's the woman and the man.
Shout out to the woman.
Yeah.
What was it like when you first then go to Berkeley? I mean, at like 5 years old, you're probably the best drummer in your area. But what was it like when you then are like, oh, everyone else is a trained drummer and stuff here? How did that
it's
feel?
funny because in Mexico, I have an obsessive personality, so I was practicing a lot. I was playing a lot, and I was always the best in my little group of friends. And they would tell me, "Oh man, you're gonna kill it." They knew I was gonna go to the States. They're like, "Man, you're gonna kill it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know.
Yeah, come on.
I'm gonna kill it." So I got over there, and I was like, "I'm here, and I'm gonna kill it." And I started. I remember the practice rooms at Berkeley. Back then, there were no drum sets, so you had to have your own kit for everything, for every class, for practicing. You had to actually bring it from this huge lockers and go and set it up, and then do your class, and then put it back together, put it back in your locker, go to your harmony class, and then I have an ensemble in 2 hours, go back again. So I have horrible back problems thanks to those years.
Huge arms though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you have to keep fit, but man, it was brutal. But when I got there, I was heavily into my fusion thing and Latin jazz, like Michel Camilo, especially, which was, it was kind of like a fusiony way of playing Latin music, because it was Dave Weckl and Joel Rosenblatt, the drummers. So that was my vocabulary, and then I got there, and at Berkeley they were not really. I mean, they were teaching some of that, but the emphasis around that time, which was 1993, there was a revival of straight ahead, jazz, like acoustic jazz. And because I got there and I didn't know that there were no drum sets at Berkeley, I mean, I remember the first day, I go like, "Excuse me, where are the practice rooms that way?" So I get there and they're empty. I'm like, "Oh, this must be like the horn practice rooms." So I go back. I was like, "Yeah, but where are the drums?" I'm like, "No, there's no drums." I mean, this is Berkeley College of Music. What the? There's no
holding your
drums.
sticks, please.
Yeah, no, and I'm like fresh from Mexico. Like I have no money, and they tell me there's no drums. So I called my mom. I was like, "Mom, you're not gonna like this, but I need a drum set." She's like, "What?" I mean, she couldn't believe it either. And she said, let me figure out how much it would be to send you your kit. I had a Tama Swing Star. It was my first kit. 22-inch bass drum. I mean, not for Berkeley. and she calls me a couple of days later, like, "It's so expensive to send it. So try to find something over there." So there was a store called Daddy's Junkie Music right across from Berkeley, and they have a lot of used stuff. So I went over there, and like I said, I was in my fusion thing, so I saw this beautiful Yamaha Power V Special that looked a lot like Dave Weckl's drums. But it was the super cheap version of that. 22-inch bass drum, 10, 12, 14 power toms, and it was like $400. And that was my budget. So I was like, this one. So I bought it, and it barely fit in my locker because the bass drum was so humongous, and I had all these shiny cymbals from Mexico. And and I used to set up in those little practice rooms. And my ritual would be like I'll be playing, and they had all glass doors. So then, if I felt somebody looking at me, I'll be like, "Oh," and then I would go into 10th gear, just to show them what I could do. And then I would casually, come out and be like, "Oh, hey, man." And
Just
they'll be
leaning
like,
against
wow.
the door. Oh, that was me.
And they'll be like, "Dude, you play really fast." I was like, "Yeah, I know. Thanks, thanks, man." I mean, to me, that was currency. To play fast was like the thing. And then my first semester, this is just to give you an idea of where I was at, and then how I got my ass kicked so hard on the first semester, and then put in my place. So I'm walking around with my stick bag, and there's a teacher that I really wanted to study with at some point, because he just started teaching there, and everybody was talking about him, Ron Savage. So I wanted to study with him, but I didn't get him my first semester. But I was walking around the hallways, and I had my stick bag, around my shoulder, and all of a sudden I hear like a deep voice, like, "Hey man, you play drums?" And I turn around, and it's Ron Savage, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Ron Savage," and I'm like, yeah, why? Like, well, I have this advanced 8th semester bebop ensemble, and the drummer didn't show up. Do you want to play? And I remind you, this is my first semester, and I'm like, yeah, of course I want to play. So okay, so meet us in such and such room. We're there already. So I go get my monstrous kit, start lugging everything, and then the kids are already playing when I get there. And straight ahead, bebop, advanced 8th semester bebop ensemble. And in my head, as I'm setting up, I'm like, man, this is my golden opportunity to show them, that I don't belong in first semester. I should be already in 8th semester probably. Save a bunch of money, maybe.
Yeah.
So I started setting up, and I started looking around, to the kids, and the kids were looking at me setting up this kit, and I could see their faces like, what is this dude doing here? But I was determined to set everything up,
Yeah.
because I was going to show them, what I could do. And I had, like I said, 10, 12, 14 power toms, my 22-inch bass drum. I think I had a piccolo snare.
Just getting the china ready.
I had double hi-hat. I had like one close on the right, my regular hi-hat. I had like 7 cymbals, I had a couple of splashes. And then, of course, double bass drum pedal. So, boom, I set up everything. And then, okay, I'm ready. And they're looking at me like, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. and they put the first chart, right next to me. And it says Pent Up House by, somebody named Sonny Rollins I've never heard of. But I look at it, it doesn't look so. I didn't know how to interpret drum charts or lead sheets. I knew how to play piano, so I knew how to read music, but I didn't know what slashes were, or I just didn't know anything about anything. And so first thing that happens is Ron Savage goes like, and to me in Mexico there was always 1 and 3, and then all of a sudden he goes like 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, backwards, right? So I'm like, oh my God, they count backwards in this country. Like the system is completely different, So I come in, and I'm struggling to keep my place, and then I'm looking at the chart, and of course I get lost immediately. But that doesn't matter, because I have an hour and a half to show them, that I'm a genius.
Yeah.
So
and you've got 2 hi-hats, remember?
I have, and my double pedal. So I don't know what my left foot was doing in my double pedal a lot of the time, because we're playing bebop. I remember just said fast swing, the chart, and I'm playing, and I immediately start firing up, just my favorite licks, one-handed rolls, and I remember just pretending I wasn't looking, but I was looking at everybody, and everybody's looking at me with these eyes like, what the hell is going on? And in my head, I was like, man, these guys are super impressed. They've never seen anything like this, obviously. So then that just encouraged me to keep going, play more. And then in the corner of my eye, I see Ron Savage Like he's in a corner sitting down looking at me with eyes wide open. His jaw is like this, almost hitting the floor. And I'm like, he's super impressed.
He is loving it.
So I'm just playing. And then all of a sudden he stands up and removes my middle tom, puts it on the floor. Then cymbals starts taking them all away. My floor tom, my first tom.
You're still going.
Second hi-hat while we're still playing.
Yeah.
And I start freaking out.
Yeah,
like,
trying to
what
keep your foot on the left
hell?
double pedal. Do you not take it?
Exactly. And I still had my double pedal, and I was still playing it. And I remember I see this annoyed face on Ron, and he just reaches in his pocket, and I see a drum key.
Oh
And
no!
I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna take my only weapon now. And then he takes my slave pedal, puts it away, and then he goes back to his chair, looks at me, and is like, okay, now solo. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. And hi-hat, snare drum, right cymbal, bass drum, and I mean, nothing. I couldn't play anything. I sounded like I woke up from a 10-year coma. I'm just like starting to play drums again, and I could see again the faces of the kids in the room, and it was like just sheer satisfaction of seeing me humiliated like that. And I was like, God damn it, this is so rough. And then that lasted an hour and a half. Tune after tune after tune. I just didn't know, I learned immediately my place. But Ron was very nice, and after everybody left, nobody said goodbye or anything. Nobody said, "Yeah, man, good job." And so I was like very depressed immediately.
That's so
depressed.
brutal.
It was brutal. But then Ron, he was very nice, and then after everybody was gone, he was like, "Hey, let me talk to you for a second, man. So, I can see you put a lot of work into how you play. I can see you have chops, you have technique, you have a lot of good things, but I just don't think you have the sound of bebop or jazz in your head. What do you listen to?" And I gave him a list, and he was like, "Well, let me give you a list for you to start checking out." And then, of course, Art Blakey, Tony Williams, Roy Haynes, Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Philly Joe, all the greats, of course. And I started checking it out, and little by little, I started understanding, oh, okay, this is like a whole different thing that I need to have, like a different kid with different cymbals. I need to play way less, and I started taking my lessons at the same time. And then little by little, I started, from the caterpillar, a crappy butterfly started coming out. But I had already, hands and feet that were pretty good, and I had a lot of hunger. I really wanted to do this right, and I wanted to learn, and so it didn't take me long for them to understand that, oh, this kid, he could go far. I had some innate talent, but I was a very hard worker, definitely.
You grateful for it when you look back now?
I always say it was one of the worst days of my life and one of the best days of my life, because it really I understood a lot of things from that humiliating session. And I could have reacted a bunch of different ways, but luckily, my ego got smashed, but I was smart enough to recognize that, okay, if I don't do this now and I keep on this other path, it's not going to be good for me here.
So advice for anyone that's going through something like that is
stay humble. Your ego is your worst enemy. When you're trying to learn, when you're trying to get better, it can so easily get in the way. So that was my main problem, an ego problem, and I had to keep it in check for those years where I was at Berkeley.
How did you go from education into playing?
Well, Danilo Perez, who was a great Panamanian jazz piano player, he played with Dizzy Gillespie, with Paquito de Rivera, a bunch of, a lot of greats. He lived in Boston, and he was the only guy who was doing it outside of Boston, touring with people that lived in Boston. So I got to know him because Boston is so small, and I used to have a gig every week at this place called the Wonder Bar in Brighton, where he lived very close to that place. So sometimes he would just pop by, and we would be playing. I was like, oh my God, it's this Danilo Perez. To me was like, I had records with Danilo Perez before I moved to Boston. So I was like, oh man, and he was young still, and we started talking and hanging, and I knew he was teaching at the New England Conservatory, which is just a few blocks away from Berkeley. And I was like, man, I wanna study with this guy. And when I was done with Berkeley, I enrolled into the conservatory, and my evil plan was to study with him, learn everything, learn how to be in his trio, what he wants from a drummer. Because I thought, I've studied with drummers already for so many years. I want to study with somebody that will tell me as a piano player what they want from me as a drummer. And I also studied with George Garçon, an incredible sax player. So my 2 private lessons of the week was one with a saxophone player and one with a piano player. And then I learned all of Danilo's music. And then I would casually in my lessons like, oh, Danilo, how does this tune of yours go, And, do you know it? I'm like, yeah, kind of, yeah. And then we would start playing, and, I totally knew it. But he would start molding me, to what, do a little bit, okay, let's try this. And, my lessons would be him, without him knowing, he was just training me to be his drummer.
Oh.
And then one day, his drummer couldn't do a couple of gigs in Paris, I remember. And it was a situation where his manager was there, and so Danilo, who are you gonna call for these gigs? And I was like, just like pretending like, oh. And then Danilo just looks at me and was like, well, he should do it. He knows the music. I'm like, I'm available.
Let me?
Yeah. So we went to Paris. We did those gigs, and then he recommended me with Paquito Rivera, who was leading the United Nation Orchestra, which was the orchestra that Dizzy Gillespie left when he died. And then Paquito kind of took it over, and he recommended me for that. So I remember, I got home, and there was a message, and he told me, I recommended you for something. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but maybe. And then I got home, and I had a message from the management saying, well, we have this European tour in the summer and all the festivals. Are you available? And I'm like, I was more than available. I had nothing to do, nothing going on. So I was like, yes. And that was, my first big tour in 1997. We did all the European festivals, and I was like a kid in the candy store. I was like, man, this is exactly what I wanted, and now I got it.
The ego is like, yes, we're back.
But then that tour ended, and then I had to go back to school because I had no visa to stay in the States other than my student visa, and I had to keep studying. But I was still studying with Danilo, and then he started calling me for his trio formally. Then I got my first work visa, and then everything just kind of snowballed from there.
It's amazing. We're moving on to Pat Metheny, the
Sure.
Big Cheese. We're going to call this section the Big Cheese.
Okay. He loves being called that.
He heard a record, and he thought it was 2 drummers, and it's just you.
What happened?
That's who we've got in the room right now, by the way, everyone.
The story goes that we were playing, because we were touring a lot with Danilo, and it was a trio, and it was a really fun trio. It was cool. We were playing a lot, and we were very tight, and the bass player was great, and I had a hybrid setup of your basic jazz kit, but instead of the middle tom, I had a flat timbal. And I had a set of bongos on my left and 1 conga, and I had my left foot cowbell, where we were doing clavis in 5, clavis in 7, and all kinds of crazy independence stuff that I had been working on for a long time. And the story goes that Pat doesn't like to play last. He likes to play first if it's a double bill, kill it, and then he has dinner and leaves. So I thought that we thought that was going to be the case. So he played first with his trio, and he killed it, and it was in Torino in Italy. and he's like a superhero in Italy. And then we played afterwards, and he was having dinner backstage while we were playing. And then the promoter of that concert asked Pat, "So, man, what do you think about this trio?" And he said, "Man, it sounds pretty good." And I like the drummer. I usually don't like percussion, but the way the drummer and the percussion are playing together, it's cool. And the promoter said, "But it's just one dude." and he was like, "What?" And then he stood up and he went to the stage because he was just hearing us backstage. And then he went to the stage and he just started checking me out.
I hope he still got his dinner as well. Just watching you still go.
And then England has a special place in this London, in this story, because a couple of weeks later, we were playing at the Pizza Express in Soho with Danilo, and Pat was playing at the Barbican that night. And after his gig, he saw that we were playing, and he came again to check me out. And he saw me again, and then I was like, "Oh my God, Pat Metheny came to see us," and I didn't know he came to see me. But he was starting to think about changing the drummer in the Pat Metheny group, and he was like, "Oh, Matt, can I have your email?" I'm like, "Sure." Gave him my email, and then a few days later, I got this super long email saying, "Man, great to meet you, and great to see you, and you sound great." And then like a weird kind of questionnaire is like, "Do you enjoy touring a lot? Do you drink? Do you do drugs?" like a job questionnaire, yeah, doctor/job questionnaire. I was like, "That's so weird." And then at the end it said, "Are you around next week? Do you want to jam?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." And we're both living in New York, and I remember. I said, "Of course, let's jam." I went to his studio in Times Square. He was renting out a studio there. And then, he opens the door, and I'm like, "That's Pat Metheny." It's just like, I couldn't believe it, And then he says, "Yeah, make yourself comfortable." And, there was like a white Sonor kid that belonged to Jack DeJohnette. Right there. And it's like, and I brought my cymbals, and I'm like, okay, so I set up my cymbals. But, Sonor, how evil that company is, because they would make the drums so that you could not tune them with a regular drum key.
Oh, yeah, it's a different key.
Yeah, and I did not have this key. And those drums were like floppy as hell, like boom, boom, boom. And I had a quarter, and I just like tried tuning them up, but I didn't feel like it sounded so good. But we jammed like for 4.5 hours. He recorded everything, and then from there we kept jamming every now and then. And then one day he said, "I think you're the right guy for this band if you want to do it." So I said, "Let's do it." And then we went into the studio. We recorded Speaking of Now was the first record, and then we just started touring for 22 years.
And that's that.
And that's that. But the cool thing about Pat is that he had the Pat Metheny group, which was like his main project that he would always go back to. And then in the middle of those projects, he would do trios, he would do quartets, all these special projects with different people. But the Pat Metheny drummer, which back then had been Danny Gottlieb and Paul Wertico, they never played in those other projects.
Yeah.
The difference with me is that he started calling me for every single project in between the Pat Metheny group projects. So then we play trio with Christian McBride, the quartet with Gary Burton and Steve Swallow, with Chris Potter, and every record he did,
yeah.
I was the drummer. So then it was a very close relationship for like 22 years.
From the jams that you did initially to figure out how you would work together, did a lot of that go on to the record you recorded, or was it new material?
No, it was total. We jammed like if it was like a jam session at a jazz club, that's how we jammed. And then
has that ever been put out?
No, I'm very curious about that tape.
I
remember he told me he had it. Yeah. But I remember in the middle of the session, he would be like, "Okay, what will you play on this?" And then he would start strumming, one of the Pat Metheny group songs. I was like, "Oh, I know that song." And then he would be, yeah. But the funny thing is that he would be like, "Okay, So now what you're playing, can you play 13% less hi-hat and maybe 55% less bass drum and 32.5% more ride cymbal? And I thought he was kidding. I was kind of laughing, but he was not kidding at the same time. So he wanted to see how I could work my internal volumes, because for him his music is very ride cymbal heavy, and then everything else was kind of tucked under. And I was playing a lot of bass drum, a lot of snare drum, and my ride cymbal was not as loud as he liked it. So it took a while for us to get there, but once we got there, then it was all good.
Unbelievable. You can already play piano. You are Amadeus. When do you start to compose by yourself?
Yeah.
For projects like Birdman, recently the studio?
Well, obviously, having an education with all these people, it's the best education you can have, because you learn how to play their music, which is incredibly well-written music. I got to play at that point. When I started doing my record, I had already played with Pat for a while, with Chicoria. I had just done a record with Michael Brecker. I had the best lessons that anybody could have already. So I would be trying to write things, and of course, after playing such great music, everything sounded like crap to me. So I was like, I'm not ready. So I kept writing, and then I would imagine, okay, what would this sound like if Pat played it, or if Chicoria played it, or if Michael Brecker played it? And then I got to a point where, like, I think it would not be shameful to put this tunes out. And I did my first record called Migration. And Pat was a guest, and Chicoria was a guest on my first record. So, Chick even wrote a tune for me called One for Antonio. Oh. So, it was just, I was, living the dream, my best life, as you would say. So I was like, man, this is what I want to do. And so I put out my first record, but I was so busy as a sideman around that time that I was not writing that much. And then at one point, I really started getting the itch, and I put out a live album first, and then my third record is called New Life, and that was the record that kind of broke me from, I felt like my compositional cage. I kind of started becoming more daring harmonically and compositionally, and I had a lot more experience on the road playing with Pat and all these other great guys. And I knew what great music sounded like, so I just was trying to imitate some of that, and just kept writing and writing, putting out albums every year and a half, new material. And then the Birdman story is very interesting, because when I was a teenager back in Mexico, we're going to go back to Mexico for a second, I was listening to this radio station called 96.9 WFM. And Magia Digital, digital magic. It was the Magia Digital.
Yeah, say it again. Keep saying it.
And I was like, oh man, my show, So one of the they used to play the hippest music in Mexico around that time, and those pre-CDs and all that stuff. So if you were in your car, it was the radio. So that's what I was listening to, and one of the DJs of this radio station was Alejandro González Iñárritu, the director of Birdman. So he was influencing me, my musical tastes back then. And then at night, he used to have a nightly show called Magic Nights. Very redundant what I just said, but it was all at night. It was called Magic Nights. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing to this show. And they used to play more sophisticated music, a little more instrumental stuff. And then one day I'm listening, and still, I'm still listening to rock and roll and pop and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, this song comes on, this tune, it's wordless vocals and really haunting melody and, really cool sounds. I'm like, what is this? And it turned out to be the Pat Metheny Group. It was a tune called Last Train Home. So the first time I heard the Pat Metheny Group
It's a banger.
Was because of Alejandro González Iñárritu.
Oh, it all goes full circle.
Much.
Yeah. So then just everything that we had...
It's gone,
People are dropping stuff.
As Boromir said, give them a minute.
Yeah, so then everything we just talked about, how I got the Pat Metheny group gig, blah, blah, blah. All of that happens. We're playing in Los Angeles in 2005, and we're doing a tour called The Way Up, which is a massive composition that they did, The Way Up, Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays. And it was a through-composed thing that lasted the whole album. And then live, it was even longer. So we used to play an hour and a half straight of this tune that never stopped. Then we would stop for a second, and Pat would introduce the band, blah, 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 real quick. And then we would play another hour 45 of just hits from the album, from the group from before. So the gigs were like 3 hours 15, 3 hours and a half. And I was a wreck after every. But thankfully, I was young and I could take it, but I was rough gigs, and I was drenched, in sweat after every gig. And I remember in LA, we were playing at the Universal Amphitheater, and I knew there were some celebrities were coming to watch us. So I remember the energy of the gig was amazing, and then I was trying to sneak by after the gig. There was going to be an after party, but to get to my dressing room and change, I had to go through the after party, and I was just trying to duck and go straight to the dressing room without anybody noticing me. And then I'm like running, and then all of a sudden I just feel a hand on my shoulder. I'm like, oh, God damn it. I don't want to talk to anybody right now because I'm like sweaty and stuff. And I turn around, and this dude that I don't know, and he says, man, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be rude, but I know you're from Mexico. I'm from Mexico, and this is one of my favorite bands. And I'm like, oh, cool, yeah, thanks, man. And I really just wanted to leave, but he seemed very knowledgeable about the band and about music. And we started talking. I was like, oh man, this guy really knows a lot about stuff. And then at one point, I said, and what do you do? And he said, well, I direct films and commercials. But I thought, in LA, everybody directs films and commercials. So, and I said, anything I would have seen. And then he said, well, I did this thing called Amores Perros, and 21 grams. And I'm like, oh my God, you're Alejandro González Iñárritu. Yeah, and I just like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you. I gave him a hug. I was like, man, I'm such a fan. And he was like, oh, man, yeah, great. And then we exchanged emails, and every time he would come to New York, he would write to me and Pat, because obviously he was a big Pat fan, and he would invite us to a premiere of his new film, and we hung out with Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz one night, and it was really, really fun to be around him, and he was just a great guy. And then years passed, and our correspondence was always through email. And then one day I'm in Miami with my wife and her grandmother. I'm driving a rental car, and all of a sudden I see my phone rings, and it says AG Iñárritu. He had never called me ever. So I was like, strange. Pick up the phone, and I hear him very excited, like, Antonio, hey man, how you doing? I'm working on my next project. It's a dark comedy, and I think comedy and rhythm go together. So I'm thinking drums would be a great score. And I remember, man, that night in LA, you did a solo. You're like an octopus, man. Would you want to do this? Are you interested in doing this? I'm like, yes, of course. Great. I'll send you the script. And he hangs up, and I'm like, what the, I just couldn't believe it. And my wife asked me, what was that? I said, well, that was Iñárritu offering me to score his next film with just drums. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah, that's insane, right? And, I was incredibly elated. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. What an opportunity. And then 5 seconds later, like, terror sets in. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? I've never scored anything in my life. I never looked to score anything. I was not interested. I love film music, but it was not something I wanted to do. But I thought, well, he's probably called me for a reason. So I'm just going to go with the flow. And then when I got home, he actually mailed me a physical script. So I, my mailbox, there's a script there. And then Birdman, I started reading it. And, for anybody that has seen the film, it's a weird weird film, right?
Yeah.
So it's very meta, and about ego, and he's talking to himself, and it's a trip, the movie. So I'm reading the script, and I'm like, what the hell is this, man? I've never read a script in my life. Scripts have no context, really. So it's not like reading a book where you can really imagine everything, So I get through it and I finish it, and I'm like, this is so weird. And I remember he told me it was a dark comedy, and I realized I did not laugh once. So I was like, oh my God, there's going to be a disaster with drums on top of it. People are going to hate me forever. So I got really paranoid, and then he called me like, did you read the script? I'm like, yeah, it was great, man. Yeah, it's so interesting. And then he said, okay, send me some demos, just check, based on the script, send me some demos. I'm like, okay, sure. And then I just started sweating. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I thought, okay, what the film composers do, themes, right? So, the Star Wars theme. Okay, so I should do a theme for the main character, which seems to be in a lot of turmoil. So it's going to be like a hectic thing. And then Ed Norton's character seems to be like a cool guy. So maybe like a cool beat.
This is so good.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out what to do, and I'm not sure about anything. So I go to a friend's studio. I didn't have a studio at home or anything back then. I go to a friend's studio. I record a bunch of stuff with a click, and I send it to him. And then like 3 days later, he calls me. He's like, Antonio, I listened to the demos. They're great, man. Thank you, beautiful. But they're exactly the opposite of what I'm looking for. Like literally. And I'm like, oh my God, is this gonna work? It really, I started doubting, if he was gonna actually go for it, because the first trial was so bad. And he said, I just want you to improvise, man. I just really want you to react to in real time, almost to what you're feeling. And okay. So that was helpful, because that I could do. I had been playing jazz for decades at this point, and I knew how to react to my surroundings. So what happened is we went into the studio, just him and me, and the script, a week before they started shooting the film. And then we did the whole film with the script. He would just explain every scene to me in great detail and just go, play. And I asked him, can you sit in front of me so that we can look at this, imagine the scene at the same time. And when you see the next phase of the scene in your head, please raise your hand. So I would start playing, and he would raise his hand. I was like, okay. So he stood up, in my mind. And then he would raise his hand again. And okay, he opened the door, and now he's walking through the hallway, just according to what he had just explained to me. So we did the whole movie like that. Then they grabbed those demos, and they superimposed them on the rough cut of the film once they had shot it. They brought me to LA. They showed me the whole thing. And then we went back into the studio the next day, because Iñárritu already at this point knew what had worked, what didn't work, and what he needed different. And then I did the whole thing again, but looking at the picture as we were doing it. And one interesting thing that happened is that from the first demos, he told me, your drums sound too good for this movie. I'm like, what does that mean? And he said, yeah, because the movie happens in the bowels of this old Broadway theater, and your drums sound so pristine. They should sound like they've been in storage for 50 years.
Might get me the Sona kit again.
Double kick pedal out again.
Yeah, exactly. So then it was an interesting experiment. I mean, detuning the drums and, putting T-shirts on top of the toms and, just trying to make it sound different than I was used to. And we just experimented with him in the studio the whole time, just guiding me. And if you go back and check out the movie, the first thing you hear when the movie starts is my voice in Spanish saying, alcancé a hacer eso, se oía, and while I'm turning like a drum key on one of my toms. And what it means is, I was trying to do that. Did you hear that? And I was talking to him in the studio. So when I went to see the movie for the first time, because I recorded this, and then I left on tour, and then I never saw anything after that. So then the movie opened, and I remember it opened in Venice at the Venice Festival. But what I saw in the rough cut, it didn't blow me away, to be honest. I saw it on a little TV with crappy sound. My drums didn't sound that good. And there was no credits, there were no color correction, there was no editing. Everything was really very rough. It's like if I showed you my album without mixing, and you're not gonna get the same idea as if I show it to you after it was mastered, right? So it didn't hit me. And then finally, I mean, the movie opened in Venice, and I started reading reviews that it was this incredible movie, Birdman, and the score is so innovative. Like, really? People are liking this? It's incredible. Because I hadn't seen the finished thing. And then finally I went to New York, went back home after months of reading reviews, because I remember I was in Asia with Pat, and I was like, man, I can't wait to see this movie. But there was nowhere to see it except in the movie theater. And it hadn't opened in Asia. So I had to go to New York. And I remember my wife and I went to like a 2 p.m. show, so there would be nobody there. And I went in, and first thing I hear is my voice. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And then I start hearing my drums in quadraphonic sound with all these letters, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And then, of course, the movie is just a masterpiece. So it was just such an incredible experience just to be able to work with them, so closely side by side and working on this project. This concept that it was his concept, to do it with drums, but I was the vehicle that he did it with, and that changed my life, because then all of a sudden I had another career, which was film scoring.
One take, one and done.
Yeah, I mean, we did a day and a half in the studio.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, normally, like for one episode of the studio that I'm scoring now, I mean, for one episode I take like a week and a half, and they're half-an-hour episodes. We did the whole movie in a day and a half. It's crazy.
Just leaving the room, they're like, here's the Grammys. Yes.
I mean, speaking of Birdman, do we want to play a quick game?
Yeah, go for it.
We haven't got long left, don't worry.
Okay.
I made this up in the middle of the night. Because your original game that I'd made, I woke up and thought, he's just too good of a human to make him play the original game. So I made you a new game. Now, the state of this game, imagine how bad the first one was. This game is called, and there will be a theme tune, Is It a Bird? Is It a Plane? No, it's Antonio Sanchez.
Is that a bird?
No.
Is it a plane?
No.
Well then, what is it?
It's Antonio Sanchez and his sick beats. Listen to the rhythm. Let it melt your mind. Ooh.
We've spoken about Birdman. We've spoken about what superhero on the drums you are. But let's find out what you both know about birds. There's three questions. Three questions.
Okay.
It's Antonio versus Alex. The prize is a bag of Tangfastics. Can you eat sweets?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Are you ready to play? It's closest to the right answer wins. Question one. Are we ready? Are we prepared?
Yes.
Go for it.
Michael Keaton, the lead of Birdman, is 175 centimetres tall. 5'9" for you, Alex. But how tall is an ostrich, the tallest bird in the world?
Okay, I'm from Mexico. I do meters and centimeters.
We can do centimetres.
How tall is an ostrich? I would say probably.
It's a big bird, not
It's
the
a big
yellow
bird.
one.
It's a big bird. In meters, I would probably say, or I mean, I could say it in feet.
We can do. I've got both.
I would say 5'10", 5'11".
Wow, are they that big? Right. I was going to go like 4'5".
I'm surprised you haven't said 850,000 feet. 4'5", and you're going about 5'10".
5'9", 5'10", 5'11".
9 feet tall.
9 feet tall?
9 feet, 2.75 metres.
Jesus. So
So
I was
Antonio
closer.
takes the point. You're
I was
closest.
closer.
You're steaming ahead.
Man, I'm killing this.
Yeah.
Let's
Who
keep
knew?
going.
Who knew? Number 2, are we ready? Okay. I've got to be serious about this one, guys. No laughing, please. As Birdman is a movie, and we're here with the soundtrack's composer, it's worth mentioning that the Drum Social podcast doesn't endorse piracy. But speaking of pirates, how many years does a blue and yellow macaw, the classic pirate parrot, live for?
How many years they live?
Roughly. I've gone max. I've maxed this bird out.
You go first.
Okay. 9 years.
Okay, 9. We've got a 9 on the table.
I would say,
Now they do go out to sea.
I would say 15.
15's good. 35 years.
35.
35.
Oh my God.
Imagine that.
Wow. I'm off by so much, but I'm winning.
But you're in.
Yeah.
You're in. You've won
I
again.
don't win the games often, so I wouldn't be too proud about this moment.
Well, technically, you've won already. So should we do the third one anyway?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the third one. We're at the UK Drum Show right now. And for everyone in the room, I think we can all agree it's a pretty loud place. Am I right? Will Drums Daily is here. Is it loud, Will? Yeah, okay. But how loud in decibels is a white bellbird the loudest bird on earth?
In decibels.
Now, a drum kit played roughly, I think, is like 90 decibels. That's just a middle ground. You're just medium, just tinkering. I'm not very good with decibels.
Let's say 150.
That's nice.
Oh, I was going to go like 80.
Yeah, I can take 80.
Yeah?
It is just a bird, 125 decibels. Again, you've stolen it. It's a clean sheet for Antonio. He's won the
mean-
bag of Tank Plastic.
My Birdman experience got me ready for this moment, obviously.
Would you like to catch these?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Incredible.
Well, that was the game.
This is good road food.
Yeah.
I got my Pez and I got my Haribo.
On a sugar rush later.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the day.
Right, just before we finish, we have a drum social playlist on Spotify, and we ask each guest to just choose 3 songs to go into it. It can be songs you've played on, songs from your albums, which I'd massively recommend, or just anything that inspires you. You're in control.
Cool. So, first one, I think I would do from my first album, the one that Chicoria wrote for me, called One for Antonio, my album Migration. Second one would be from that album that I was talking about that opened me as a composer. I think the album is called New Life, and the song would be New Life. And this song is special because it's the first time Tana, Alexa, my wife, recorded with me on anything. And the first time we participated with each other musically. So that song is very special. And it's called New Life because I started my new life as a band leader, composer. That's why the album is called that, and that's why the song is called that. So that would be the second one. And then from the last, my latest album, which was a lot of fun because I got to collaborate with all these incredible singers like Dave Matthews and Trent Reznor and Michelle Ndegocello, Kimbra. I have so many people in there. But one of my favorite tunes from that album is the one with Trent Reznor. It's called, I think we're past that now, from the album Shift, Bad Hombre Volume 2.
Yeah, I saw it as Bad Hombre, and I was like, I'm too pale to say the word hombre. I think if I step foot in Mexico and hit a drum, it's just Gringo Star, and you're like, that's all I am.
Just anything in Spanish, just remember a very simple rule, H is silent. That's it.
Oh.
Yeah. Bad Hombre.
Of all the things we've learnt today,
Well.
that's up there. Will there be a Bad Hombre 3?
Oh, definitely.
Is he coming back?
He's definitely coming back. I mean, Trump is back in office, so Bad Hombre has not left. Yeah. We need to fire that orange orangutan.
What a way to end.
Big time.
Right, thank you so much. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks,
Pleasure.
everyone, for
This has been
listening.
great.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, insane. But
I'm
yeah,
overwhelmed.
thanks to the UK Drum Show.
Oh, yeah, thank you to the UK Drum Show. You did your main stage performance yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday was.
How do you think it went? Were you happy with it?
Yeah. I mean, I like to talk. I like to talk to people. So I was noticing that most of the incredible drummers that were on that stage were just playing tracks, and I really wanted to communicate more with people and talk about storytelling, how to build motifs, and how to build characters when you're playing. And I've learned a lot from scoring too. And there's so many similarities between improvising and storytelling when it comes to filmmaking or books. It's all about the story, and I wanted to talk to them about that and the relationship between that and music, and it was a lot of fun. I think they took it well.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
again,
you.
guys. Pleasure.
Oh, we're officially done.
Yeah.